This is Driven. Tonight on the car show, which is first with the big news, the fastest production Jaguar ever takes on two big rivals at our test track. A world exclusive, the first look at Lotus's dazzling new sports car, plus spy shots of a new Rover, and the devastating effects of a crash with a four-wheel drive on film never seen before in Britain. A big GT is perhaps the most complete car you can buy. Muscular, fast, great to drive, and kitted out inside like a luxury saloon. Take this, the Jaguar XKR. There's a mammoth 370 brake horsepower supercharged V8 stuffed under that smooth nose, and inside it's trimmed in the finest oldie-worldy British tradition. Yours for £60,000.
But this is still the benchmark. 64.5 grand buys you a legend, the utterly dependable Porsche 911, the practical supercar. Now, Porsche has had almost 40 years to get the design of this car right. It should be pretty good by now. I do believe it is.
But the old European order is under threat from Japan. This Nissan Skyline GTR is packed with high-tech gadgetry. Can this £50,000 upstart wipe the floor with Jaguar and Porsche?
So, British charm, German efficiency, Japanese ingenuity. But which is the quickest? Well, we have all three cars, we have unlimited tarmac, and we have the high-tech test equipment to find out. But first, not one, but two brand new cars from Lotus. Peter Stevens is our man at Lotus's HQ.
This is the Mark II Lotus Esprit, a car which matters to me more than most. As chief designer here in the 80s, I created it. It was a supercar of the 70s, and my job then was to update it without changing its dramatic character. In fact, I was very pleased with the way the car looked, and I still am. I think it's a shape that's endured well in 12 years, and that's really why we're here. We're getting a chance for a sneak preview of the latest version of the Esprit. It's the Sport 350, and it's derived from Lotus's GT racing program. With a tuned Lotus V8 engine and a wild winged spoiler, the 350 Sport is the fastest Lotus yet. It still feels very much like the Esprit that I know, the Esprit that I was involved with back in '86, but obviously a lot quicker. The interior, I think, is much more sophisticated than it was. Lotus have managed to pare another 30 kilos from the weight of the car. That's what makes it so responsive. It's still a very nice car to drive. So, the Sport 350 is a pretty serious motor car. But if you think this is exciting, wait till you see the other reason I've come to Lotus. In the design studios, I filmed an exclusive preview of an exciting new project, codenamed, of all things, Enid. The 340R is based on the Lotus Elise. It's a concept car that looks the 21st century straight in the eye. It's got a very Lotus feel to the front of it. It's got some tremendous mean little headlights here that give it a very aggressive look, and I think a very modern look. It's not paying any lip service to sort of historical automotive cliches at all. The rear end of the car is really quite outrageous. Deliberately, there's been no attempt to hide any of the mechanical components. In fact, what the designers have done is to make a feature out of a lot of those elements that people normally keep hidden well away. This theme of honesty in the engineering is carried through into the interior. For example, the gear lever here. It looks like there's a chunk of aluminium that someone's painstakingly carved into a shape that just feels right for a gear knob. And it's the same with the way that the supports for the instruments have been treated. They're pieces of aluminium, and you can see how they fit in there, you can see how they've been made, and there's no attempt to hide them with fussy little trim pieces. There's a very nice swooping line that runs all the way from the front to the back of the car over there. And you'll notice there's no doors. In fact, there's no roof. But that's really the whole ethos of this kind of car. It's meant to convey a much more immediate and raw sense of driving. I don't think that Lotus will be able to resist putting this into production. This is just a prototype, but even this one runs, and we're going to see it on the test track. The speed limit for this precious show car was a leisurely 20 miles an hour, but that didn't matter. It was a chance to see the 340R on the move. Mobile, the radical lines look even more outrageous, and the forward-looking design becomes complete.
If this is the future of Lotus, then things are looking pretty bright. And if you want to see more of this car, you can do so at the Motor Show in Birmingham next week. Me, I'm going for another couple of laps in this thing. It's brilliant. Go!
In deepest Essex is a test track where Driven will be getting its hands on the most exciting new cars and finding out just how good they are. This week, the potent new Grand Tour from Jaguar. Is the XKR a worthy successor to the big cats of the past? When the A-Type died in 1974, it became the hardest automotive act in the world to follow. They managed it though with the XK8 in 1996. But they haven't stopped there. They've added a supercharger to it to create this, the XKR, the fastest production Jaguar ever made.
Right, the Porsche 911, an all-new car. But I can't help noticing that, just like the original of nearly 40 years ago, the engine's still in the back. The instrument panel's still a bit weird, frankly, and the luggage bay, that's under the bonnet, that's about the size of a wash bag. Why? Well, actually, it's because the appeal of the 911 is so great that Porsche daren't actually meddle with it.
There's no emotional baggage with the Nissan Skyline GTR, just bags of high technology. There's four-wheel drive, four-wheel steering and computers that control everything. And it's rare. Only 100 have been officially imported into the UK, and most of those, like this one, have had a 500 quid modification chip that takes the brake horsepower up to about 340. It's basic inside and it lacks pedigree, but that could be what makes it so good.
We have 2 miles of unrestricted runway. Space enough to test the strengths of the GTs in a safe setting. On board the cars are extremely accurate computers. Each car can do over 150 miles per hour, but which will get to 100 first? James starts with the Jaguar. Our computer readout shows the speed, the time taken and the thrust measured as a G-force.
Should be quick.
Traction control on, and... So the Jag's 0 to 100 time is slightly longer than the first line of Paris Jerusalem.
13.2. Next, the Porsche 911.
So much for German automotive supremacy.
13.8. Finally, the Skyline, and a huge surprise.
Not bad for a competitively priced Japanese coupe.
12.1.
Well, I'm rather disappointed to have to report that the Nissan is quite convincingly the quickest. It's more than a second faster than the Jaguar.
Yeah.
And getting on for 2 seconds faster than the Porsche.
What about getting it off the line?
Well, again, the Porsche was the hardest. You know, I thought the engine had gone without the car at one point, except that obviously it couldn't then because it would have
You'd
come
left it
through
behind,
me
yeah.
because it's in the back.
How about the Jag?
The Jag's like accelerating in your study. You know, you just sit there and press the pedal and it goes. It's so easy.
All that power has legal uses too. Imagine you're stuck behind a lorry grinding along at 40 miles per hour. A gap opens up. How quickly can you overtake safely? To put it another way, how long is the time you're exposed to danger?
What about this, the Jaguar XKR? If this truck gets out of my way, here we go. Wow. Life went past in a flash.
5.8. Next, the Porsche 911 with almost 300 brake horsepower from its famous flat-six engine. 6.0. And finally, the Challenger equipped with four-wheel steer, four-wheel drive and loads of power. 5.6. It doesn't have the blue-blooded heritage of its rivals, but the Skyline outpaces the Europeans in a straight line. But will their breeding outdo the Nissan's technical wizardry on a handling course? 2 sharp bends, followed by a slalom and a brake test. First up is the Jag. The problem with the Jaguar is that it's just so big, you know. It's not really. It's not designed to be driven like this. That's very, very, a lot of weight thrown around. Through the slalom will be particularly tricky. I think this is a car for fat Americans who eat too many burgers and drink too much Coca-Cola. Right. Through the slalom. Triumph of engineering over physics. Ah, mega car. Mega car. Pretty much understeer there as it takes care. But it's brutally fast, and the steering is spot on in here. So the techno brat Japanese upstart, the Skyline GTR, well, it pretty much trounced the other two, didn't it?
It showed him a thing or two, for sure.
Except in the small issue of style and quality, I think. The interior belongs on a Micra, let's face it. It has to be a nice car to be in as well as a nice car to drive. If I had to choose one of these as my only car, I'd have to have the Jag.
My head is saying go for the Nissan, but my heart is saying go for the Porsche. And the reason for that is, unfortunately, I just find it a little bit too uninvolving. There's too much technology there that takes over.
Oh, I could easily take the Skyline. It's a PlayStation game come to life. This is so clever that you can get it out of shape and you can have a lot of fun and it'll take care of you. Well, so what if it's distantly related to Datsun? The Skyline GTR is the winner for me. After the break, exclusive spy shots of two vitally important new British cars.
Graham's a photographer and he's in the market for a new car. He's got £15,000. He wants something that's safe, reliable, stylish, but can also carry all his photography equipment around. And I'm here to help him choose. We lent Graham 3 cars so he could do the sort of real-life test that no trip to a car showroom could ever provide. But there was a problem with one of them almost straight away. Graham, you've chosen 3 very different models for us here. We've got this lovely Renault Megane Scenic, this wonderful little Mercedes A-Class Classic. I'm really surprised that you've chosen this Passat Estate. It's so different from the other 2.
It is different. It's the conventional solution, in effect. Overall, as a look, it's handsome, but sadly, it takes up too much space. It compromises the use of the carport in terms of getting bikes out and all of those sorts of things. So what we're hoping is that these will offer us the same internal space and a much smaller footprint.
Let's get rid of this one then. Let's concentrate on these 2. And I understand we're a bit pushed to get you to a photography shoot.
I must say there's a sense of well-being behind this 3-pointed star, and a sense of having arrived. There's a tiny little chrome strip in here, which is, it's not necessary, but it just adds a little touch, then a little glint on the top of that. Oh, that was a nasty bump. It does seem to bring the road bumps back into the cabin quite a bit.
I brought over the keys for the Megane. Can I take the keys to the Merc?
Yep.
See how you get on with that. And I'll catch up with you later, shall I?
The impression I get here is that this car is going to feel second-hand sooner. It hasn't got quite the same bobbly ride that the Mercedes had. It seems to smooth the bumps out rather better.
Design, style and image are very high on Graham's list of priorities.
Just look at the windscreen wipers, see the way they sit parallel.
Yeah, it's very nice.
This nice bit of grilling here,
Yeah.
that kind of detail, you kind of appreciate that sort of thing. It's like, it's a clumsier arrangement just there.
What about this design? Is it...
Well, it's kind of radical, it's a departure. I mean, one of the things about this is that it must work very well aerodynamically. I mean, in the short time I've driven it, the sound from it is minimal.
Look at this.
Yes, I've actually been in a Renault garage where these were off,
Yeah.
and the chap picked it up and showed me that
It's
it
just
was
a plastic wing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now the final test. Every few weeks, Graham must make a 200-mile round trip to his boat on the canals in Derbyshire. He carries supplies for up to 2 weeks afloat. To your boat, isn't it?
That's right.
I don't think all this is going to go in without actually taking one of these seats out. Is it simple to do?
Catch there.
Right. And then it's this handle. Yeah, that comes up.
Okay.
And there must be these two little
levers here.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's a nice feature. Look, it's got a handle.
So it all seems to go in quite well in the old Scenic, doesn't it? Hope it charges along the motorway as good. Graham had 100 miles to drive in the Scenic, and that gave him a real chance to see how it behaved on a long journey. How well built was this?
It's quiet and smooth. It pulls away from the roundabouts, flows up the motorway okay.
What about things like overtaking? Them high-sided vehicles are a bit of a pain to get past, especially in something that's not grunty.
No, it's okay. It nipped by all right. And anyway, who needs to go as fast as those white vans?
Loading the A-Class was much more of a problem. Even with the seats folded back, it was a struggle to fit everything in, leaving us with an obvious dilemma.
Pleasure of owning it. Right, well, that's all in. The only problem is we sometimes come up with one or other of the daughters or somebody else or some friends for the weekend.
And then you're
Crew.
going to be...
And then you can't take them home.
On this test so far, the Scenic has, in my opinion, won it hands down.
It wins another round. My feelings about these two cars has swung backwards and forwards over the last 2 days, first preferring one and then preferring the other.
Graham, it's time to choose. What are you going to do? You're going to go for the Gallic charm of this lovely Megane Scenic, or you're going to go for the German build quality and design integrity and that very important three-pointed star badge on the front of the Merc? Which way are you going to go?
To go back to the original brief, the Scenic wins and offers space as well. It took the equipment, it took the paraphernalia and had space to spare. So in that sense, it has to be the Scenic.
So you're going to go for the Renault?
Looks like it.
OK, Graham, come on, smile.
Okay. That's enough.
Here we are on board the driven truck. Now, we've just had a visit from one of our spies who spent the last 48 hours hanging around outside the Rover factory in a long coat. This is what he brought for us. Our team wasn't exactly welcome at Rover's HQ, but they got close to the secret new 75 saloon to be unveiled at next week's motor show. It's undergoing road trials, under disguise. They haven't got the screen washers quite right. They're not supposed to hit the car behind. So what do you make of that, Jason?
This is the replacement for the ill-selling Rover 600, which was based on the Honda Accord. It's also the first all-new Rover developed under the aegis of BMW. This car has to deliver in a big way.
Right, here we have a few choice stills from that piece of home video. Here's one of the front with the disguise on it, but of course, using digital technology, we can remove that and put in the Rover grille, which doesn't improve it greatly.
No, it doesn't really.
And we've also got one of the back. Now, we can't remove this disguise so easy, but it's only a bit of sticky tape.
I mean, you can still see pretty clearly that it's got a kind of droopy sort of rear end, which was a bit of a kind of Rover styling signifier of, you know, certainly the older cars. I reckon it'll probably handle reasonably well. They think they've built the best handling, most competent front-wheel drive car. But I mean, the expectations in this car are so huge. Should handle well. I don't like the way it looks.
So, do you think this is just a sort of German interpretation of what a British car design should be?
All BMW seem to have done is boil down the essence of British car design to silvery grille, lots of chrome bright work, wood and leather inside, and a few slightly strange styling cues or quirks.
Right, well, we'll reserve final judgment on the BMW Rover until we've driven it. In the meantime, your 4x4, how safe is it?
This is your modern city car, engineered to exacting standards to protect me and other drivers from harm. But more and more people are choosing to buy vehicles built like this. Big, bold and brash.
Behind that fashion lies a big safety problem. For the first time in Britain, we show what happens when off-roader meets saloon at just 33 miles an hour.
Off-road vehicles are a tremendous threat to the occupants of passenger cars. They are actually killer vehicles serving as battering rams, just penetrating deeply into the side and front of the passenger cars.
Once it was a humble farm vehicle, not anymore. 1 in 5 of all passenger vehicles sold in America is designed to cope with life in the raw, even though it'll probably never have to.
I use my four-wheel drive to go to work, take my kid to school, and we go shopping, you know, go to the beach.
And record numbers are appearing on our roads too.
My husband gets a real kick of driving high, and he feels it's, you know, a bit of prestige to it.
1 in 20 new vehicles here is an off-roader, and that is threatening to affect the safety of the rest of us. The problem is this. By law, ordinary cars are built to withstand crashes with each other at reasonable speeds. So, at 30 miles an hour, the bumpers should meet, the crumple zones should absorb impact, and the passengers should remain largely protected. But 4x4s avoid these rules because they are classified as off-roaders.
These vehicles don't have to meet the passenger car bumper standards. The passenger car bumper has to be 19, 22 inches above the ground. A lot of these vehicles are at 30 inches above the ground. When you hit a passenger car, you get intrusion into the passenger compartment of the car, and clearly that's bad news for the occupants.
This German film of a Nissan Patrol and a VW Golf gave the first warning 5 years ago. It has not been seen until now.
The Nissan Patrol overrode the front structures of the Volkswagen Golf, penetrated into the survival space for the driver, killing the driver and inflicting also severe injuries to the chest of the rear seat passenger of the Volkswagen Golf.
This Mark I Range Rover did less damage, but it still penetrated the passenger compartment and would cause severe chest injuries at 33 miles an hour. The problem with 4x4s lies in their rigid structure. They are built solid and stiff so they can survive off-road.
The frame rail travels all the way along the side of the vehicle, all the way to the rear bumper. So what you have, in a sense, are two harpoons or two battering rams, very strong, that will penetrate directly into the side or front of a passenger car, inflicting fatal injuries to the occupants of that car.
Off-roaders cause 60% of deaths in side impact crashes in America. Tests with a Honda Accord and a Ford Explorer show why.
The Ford Explorer penetrated deeply into the side of the Honda Accord and crushed the thorax or chest area, inflicting extremely severe injuries to the driver of the Honda Accord.
It was a crash like this which changed Diane DeVere's life forever.
She was struck by a Range Rover. It shoved the side door approximately 18 to 20 inches into the driver's compartment. She was unconscious and, as it turns out, to be in a coma for the next 3.5 weeks.
I became brain injured. I do not remember what I said just a few minutes ago, and I always have to either write things down or I have to record it so I could understand what somebody has told me.
These vehicles actually are standard on-road vehicles in a passenger car environment, and they should meet the same standards, the same bumper standards, as do passenger cars. It's not an insoluble problem in any way.
You've got substantial dangers out there, and Diane and I are living proof of that.
Nissan recently launched a new Patrol. They told us that, in computer models, the new design reduces the damage caused to other vehicles. But, they added, lowering the ride or bumper height would drastically reduce off-road ability and therefore is not an option. No other manufacturers wished to comment.
And finally, here's another major newcomer in disguise. Next week, we'll be giving the first full report on the S-Type, the most important Jaguar since the 60s. We'll also be putting Ford's new Focus up against its biggest rivals and revealing more about the safety record of off-road vehicles.
News, first on BBC.